Few weeks ago, when Elizabeth came up to me and said, we want to have this drop-in cafe and what subjects we could discuss. We discussed certain options, and then she came up with this idea of tips for Canva. And I said, fine, I've been doing Canva training for quite some time. I consider myself as a Toastmasters brand ambassador, so I would be more than happy to share my tips. And then she created this poster which said 7 tips for brand compliance. And I had not told her anything. And I was thinking, there's only one tip for brand compliance. And I think most of you know what that one tip is. But then I started thinking about it, and I did come up with 7 tips that I would like to share with you. And I hope, since it's recorded, others can also benefit from it at a later stage. What helps us to stay brand compliant and what are the challenges that we normally face. So let's get started. So today we are going to talk about essentially brand compliance. And those of you who don't know me, my name is Cajetan Barretto. I am a passionate Toastmaster. I love photography, and for the last 1 or 2 years, I've been doing a lot of work on my YouTube channel called Tech for Toastmasters. So for today's session, some ground rules. So I would like to keep the microphones muted. Use the raise hand option as much as possible to if you have any questions. And please, this is an informal session. I'm not here to give some kind of groundbreaking training for you all. You all probably know most of it. We will sort of try to share our knowledge with each other. Whatever I know of branding, I will try to share with you. Possibly you know something that I don't. At the end of the day, we are all here learning. Do use the speaker view so that you can see my presentation and whatever I'm showing through this camera view that you can see right now. And do start putting your queries in chat. And I would like to see those queries right now. First of all, just saying hi, who are you? And why did you come to this session? I would like to see some responses from you in the chat. Maria from Doncaster Speakers, Yorkshire, welcome. David from Cornerstone Communications. All of you are welcome to this short session. It's supposed to be 30 minutes. I will try to keep my main session to around 20 or so then we can have some kind of a Q&A session. So let's start with tip number 1. And the only tip that I really knew before the session itself, and that is to read the brand manual. And you will be surprised how many of us, or at least those who take up this role at the beginning of every July, don't really invest the time to read the brand manual. And it's not really that big a deal. It's just less than 10 pages, I guess. And if you really think about the brand manual, there are only, in essence, 4 core elements. And I'm not going to, in today's session, it's not about talking about what is branding or what are the elements of branding. I'm sure most of you already know that. There are colors, there is the logo, there are the fonts, and there are images. And the combination of all of this essentially gives us the brand of Toastmasters. So going through that manual helps us to understand what are those colors, what are the color codes, what are those fonts, how to get the right fonts in your design, what kind of logo you can use. You have different options. And finally, what's the images that you can use in your design. And of course, if you want to talk about the brand manual, it's available under resources in toastmasters.org and the brand portal, where you will find the brand manual. And everyone should be encouraged to at least go through this brand manual and read the contents. And as I said, they have recently, I think last year, they made it so simple that you can finish it in half an hour. That's the investment that you need to do. Of course, going through the different aspects that are available, understanding what are the colors, what are the fonts, what are the logos, and what are the images, and you are good to go. So that's my first tip, that we should encourage everyone who creates any design to go and read the brand manual. And I remember my first poster that I created. Somebody told, I was not actually a VP PR, but I had learned Canva, and somebody said, I think it was my second club, Capital Speakers. And they told me, please, can you make a poster for us? So I went and I created what I thought was an amazing poster, Capital Speakers. And it was all about Pathways, had just launched at that time. So I thought, like, wow, launch your path to success. And I posted this on the social media channel, and everyone said, wow, what a great poster. And I had created this poster not even knowing that there is something called a brand manual. And I'm sure those of you who are looking at this poster will be laughing, right? Because Cajetan designed this poster, and I did it because I had not, at that time, I was only a few months in Toastmasters. I did not know there was a brand manual. And I believe a lot of VP PRs, when they take up the role, they don't really know what they're expected to do. They don't know that there is this brand manual and what are the elements of the brand manual. So that's my first tip. Just go and read the brand manual. My tip number 2 is get yourself trained. And I cannot stress enough about this. Training, obviously, your first point of training should be your club. If, for example, you're outgoing VP PR, then get yourself trained with him. Do the proper handover. After that, your district will arrange the first training, the COT. Attend those trainings. Obviously, now it's much easier to do because you can just log into Zoom and attend the trainings. But even if it was physical, it's a great opportunity to meet like-minded people. And so training is very important. Somehow, whenever you take up any role, you should get yourself trained. And the same thing applies for when you want to create brand content. Getting yourself trained is very important. So that's my tip number 2, that once you read the brand manual, get yourself trained. If you really want to master branding, then my tip number 2 is train others. I really became what I am today when I decided to take up training. I'm not a design expert, but what I realized is after going through the manual, after checking what people are doing, I realized there is so much brand violations that are happening. And you cannot really, like when somebody posts something, let's say on your Facebook page or on the group, you can't really reply to that person and say, hey, you made a mistake, because people get offended. And I've noticed it whenever you try to bring it to their attention that you have done something wrong or not in compliance with branding, people get offended because they have invested so much time and they say, why is he telling me this? So the best thing is train others, and it can start in your club. You could do, for example, a pathways session for your club saying, let's learn branding. So if you're a VP PR, one of your pathways project could be from, let's say, level 2, or there are so many projects you can choose where this would fit. Just spend 10 minutes explaining to others what is colors, what is fonts, what is images, and what is logo, how to use it. And when you start doing that, then you automatically sort of absorb that manual, which you might not have done if you had not invested that time for teaching others. If it was just for you, you would just scan through it, maybe miss a lot of things. But when you're forced to train others, and that's for me at least, I became a brand expert. I became passionate about branding only after I started training others. Is my screen stopped, Craig? Or is it okay now?
It's okay now, but when you show the flyer that you did wrong is when the screen stopped.
Okay. Let me test it. Seems okay. Fine. Yeah, because I'm actually running on two screens, so sometimes I don't observe myself because I'm looking at the other screen. So yeah, do highlight to me if there is any problem. I'll make my wife co-host. She usually knows what I'm expected to do. Elizabeth, can you just make Priscilla co-host so that she can alert me if there is something wrong? Let's move on to the tip number 4. And that is the assets that are available to us in Toastmasters. So if you go to the Toastmaster brand website, we will find that there are a lot of resources, ready-made resources that you as a VPPR or anybody who wants to create content, brand compliant content, can use rather than making things from scratch. So if you, for example, look for marketing resources, right? So there are ready-made assets available to you. All you have to do is check the asset that is available. And so you have all of these assets that you can use as is, right? There are assets where which you can, for example, marketing, let's say. Yeah, so what I was saying is that you have all of these assets available to you. For example, you want to send out an invite. So we have you just download the file and you are ready to use it without investing much time, right? So you can look at this, just fill in the blanks and send out the invite. So there are plenty of resources that are available to you. So all you have to do is go to the brand portal and check the resources under the brand portal and use them as they are, because they have been created, carefully curated by Toastmasters International for us to use. So use the resources as much as possible. Okay. Next tip of mine is, 1 minute. Okay, so the next tip is, and this is something that really I want to highlight. When I say themes hate branding, what do I mean by this? What I want to do is I want to show you, let me share again my screen. Tell me when you can see the screen. Can you see the Facebook screen?
Not yet. It's coming, but nothing. Not yet. Still hasn't happened yet, Cajetan.
Okay.
We can see it now. We can see pathways. Is that what we should be seeing?
Correct.
Yes.
All right. So what I wanted to talk about is themes and how it impacts branding. This is one of the Facebook groups that I am an admin of called Resources for Toastmasters. I don't know how many of you all are members of this group. But what I wanted to sort of highlight to you is if you go through this feed, okay, and I will not really worry about conferences, district conferences, but if you scroll down and you look at this first poster, right, you notice that this poster is about photography, right? Lens Masters, Advanced Toastmasters, photography. And they have created a poster or a branded poster around photography. Okay, just keep that in mind. Let's go down a little bit. Okay, this looks good. What about this? Do you think this is brand compliant? Now, I don't want to highlight any particular club or something. I just wanted to just scroll through it and for you all to observe the branding that is posted in a group that has thousands of members, right? Going down, St. Patrick's Day. Today, I think, St. Patrick's Day for you all. Okay, so somebody wanted to highlight that it's a St. Patrick's Day. And the result of that, of course, is you want to stress St. Patrick's Day. But at the same time, because it's a theme, then your posters automatically end up being not brand compliant. Going down, what about this? Right? So what you can see is we are now in the middle of the year, and as we scroll through the feed of posters created by clubs around the world, majority of them, I don't know, this is maybe not Toastmasters, food, right? What about this? So as I'm scrolling through this, the majority of the content that is being created even today doesn't follow the brand guidelines. And generally the reason why it happens is people are so focused on creating something around the theme that when you look at it from a lens of a branding, you'll find that it doesn't actually meet the brand guidelines. Okay. So when I say themes hate branding, that means if a PR is trying to create a poster and his focus is on brand, on theme, then I can assure you that it will not be brand compliant, most likely. So how do you avoid that challenge? How do you, when you want to highlight something and it has a theme, how do you sort of manage this balance between creating something that matches the theme and matches the brand? It is quite a challenge, but if you do it properly, then by following the brand manual, then it can be done. The next thing my tip number 6 is to essentially, when you want to create something from a tip from branding perspective, don't try to create a poster for each and every time that you have a meeting to start from scratch. What I do is I have this kind of templates where I spent some time in the beginning to sort of define how my club would project itself. And so every time that I create a poster, it will have almost the same kind of ideas. The club name, some title, some content, then the dates and time, and to highlight some person who is part of that meeting. So that way, when you look at this poster anytime, you know that this poster is for this club, even though it's Toastmaster branded, but by looking at it, you will sort of create that brand for your own club, but at the same time, staying within the branding of Toastmasters. So create one or two kind of designs, and then that's it. Next time you want to have a meeting, just replace the photo, replace the text and the meeting number, and you are done for that meeting. Do not try to create everything from scratch for each and every meeting. And my final seventh tip is to get feedback. Always seek feedback. So before sharing your poster to any social media, reach out to, maybe you have an expert in your club, get the feedback from him. If not, maybe you have a WhatsApp group for your district for all the VPPRs. If such a thing exists for you, post it there, get the feedback. So for example, in our District 20, we have a group called VPPR. So members post their posters, they ask for feedback, and there are many people here who immediately give feedback and say, and I like, for example, there is this one lady who always is very helpful, and what she does is she uses the classic Toastmaster feedback concept. Give positives, what you have done well, where are the areas of improvement. So for example, lovely attempt, I liked your frames. Please give enough clear space to the logo. So gently highlighting what could be improved in that poster. So if not, you can even join some Facebook groups or create your own group where you can share feedback before posting it on social media or in your newspapers, or always get feedback from others. And while receiving feedback, there are two aspects that I want you to pay attention. There can be a feedback on design and a feedback on branding. So for example, if the feedback says the font is to be Myriad Pro, or the font has to be as per the branding, that is a brand feedback. But if somebody says, oh, the text is too small, make it big, that is not brand feedback, that is design feedback. And design feedback is always subjective. It is depending on what one person likes and one person doesn't like. So that's up to you whether you want to accept the design feedback. But if there is a brand feedback, then it is your duty to correct the design as per the branding, and then go ahead and publish it. So those were my 7 tips to stay brand compliant. If there are any questions, I think I have reached the end of my 30 minutes. I have only 2 minutes left. It was quick, but I hope you got something out of it.